Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast.
Sam, you brought up an interesting question in the show today about a parent's bathroom in a home.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny to learn that we all had similar situations with that growing up, that
You don't go into your parents' bathroom. It's theirs unless you ask permission.
was the same true for the bedroom, the parent's bedroom?
Not really.
Oh.
And because, in fact, what's weird is I had to take naps as a child.
You mean you
like
got
you were
to?
forced to?
You mean you
Yeah.
got to? When you're a kid, you have to take naps. When
Yeah.
you're an adult, you wish for a nap.
Yeah, there was about 20 or 30 years in the middle there where naps don't mean a thing, and then you're back at it. But yeah, it was like every day's naps. My brother got sent to our room. I had to go to my parents' room.
They
to take my
separated
nap.
you.
Yeah.
Well, that's sweet and
Yeah.
different.
So I had a king-size bed to roll around in and pretend I was sleeping.
Oh, it's so funny.
But yeah, you didn't go in their closets. You only walked into their bedroom. You never went in their bathroom.
Right. We kind of had the same situation. Certainly with the bathroom, we were more allowed in the bedroom. I have a friend who was not allowed in her parents' bedroom. And you better knock. You better never, ever walk in. Just big fat walk in.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a good rule, good hard and fast rule. And when she grew up, it was hard for her to, even as an adult, walk into that room. It was so ingrained in her.
Well, you know, it's funny is I do feel weird when I walk in. I mean, my dad's been gone since 2009, but whenever I'm home and I walk in my mom's room, it does feel weird.
Right.
Because it's like I know that's her sanctuary.
It's her very personal space, as it should be.
Yeah, I think that goes beyond the parent. It's just the teaching. What they're teaching you is you respect other people's spaces and stuff. You know, so our bathroom, my parents' bathroom wasn't off limits per se. It was just that I think they wanted us to learn to share ours because if they needed their bathroom, they needed their bathroom. But, you know, I have a brother and a sister, and there was a 2-bathroom house, and if one bathroom was full, you went and used the other bathroom. That was never an issue. But if you were going to, you know, stop to shower or something like that, anything that would, you know, you just as a courtesy would ask in advance.
Yeah.
And the parents' bedroom thing was never a problem. You just didn't mess with their stuff, you know.
Correct. And
walking in. So
I bring it back up because I think that's a beautiful thing, and I hope we did that with our girls. Although our girls, if we're being honest, they had more run of our home than they should have.
Well, you mean
looking back when
coming
they
back
were
and getting shirts out of my dresser and stuff like that?
Oh,
There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's kind of fun in hindsight.
They just did. We never really thought about areas where it just happens naturally. You don't go into parenting with your plan, hopefully, of this is going to happen. You just figure it out one day at a time. And I know that we had, Murphy, well, you definitely had electronic rules.
Yeah,
Still do.
Right.
Jodi, don't touch these. But I do think it's a
the
beautiful
rules were for
thing.
Jodi. The kids were fine.
Yeah.
Oh, ha, ha, ha. Except that time Phoebe broke your video camera, your old camcorder.
You know, I remember
She
that.
was so scared.
She was mortified, but it was just a camera. At some point, you know what I mean? When they were little, you're trying to teach them to respect things only because. Well, I mean,
they need to.
As they get older and they pay money and they work hard to buy things, they need to take care of their stuff, and so they need to learn that at an early age. I think my dad was probably a little over the top with a lot of that, which is where it came from.
Okay.
Because Sam, what you were saying, walking into your mother's bedroom, I remember literally the first time that me and my brother and sister walked into my dad's house after he had passed, and we had waited probably about 4 weeks before we decided to go in and, okay, it's time to start doing something with the stuff. You felt bad touching any of the stuff because
You had been your whole life.
it's their stuff. They're not here anymore, but it's still right that that thing. So
I
it was
think
very
that's
weird
beautiful that kind of respect that you feel inside of you can live on. It was instilled in you by them when you were a kid. And I think that it's beautiful to still respect your parents at that same level when you are an adult and the relationship changes and you're in a caregiving situation, which you were toward the end of his life, Murphy.
Right. And one of the rules was, and this probably doesn't happen in many households, one of the many rules was you don't touch the motorcycle, which was in the house, by the way. His first motorcycle that he bought when he was in high school in 1960 he kept it in the house until we had a storage building outside that they were able to put it in for safekeeping. but he literally, we didn't have a garage. We just had a carport. So he didn't want to leave that thing out in the elements, and it has stayed inside to this day. And that one still, when we put that on the truck, my sister has that motorcycle in her house, by the way, right now.
Yeah, it's so gorgeous.
When we loaded that thing up, you couldn't have seen four people being more careful and cautious, and it was, and by this point my dad's been gone a couple of years, but yeah, so you didn't mess with that. You certainly didn't mess with the Corvette, which we just recently sold, even though it was covered and didn't run. And if you were going out the back door, which is where the vet was, you had to be very careful because you weren't going to bump into that thing either. We learned all those things, you know what I mean? He was very, and you know what the other thing was? And this is all hitting me now.
Fine, yeah.
He was insanely protective of vinyl, meaning music.
Yes.
Because vinyl scratches, you know what I mean? And if you don't carefully clean the record and put the record on the needle and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I made sure that when I took, and I still to this day, now that I'm back into some vinyl again, when I'm pulling things out of the sleeve or whatever, I'm treating it with like extreme caution.
What you're talking about could have gone to the extremes in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It sounds a little bit like it, like you walk carefully past the Corvette and you don't scratch this and you don't scratch that. That would be a very hard place for a child to grow up. Like a child does not need to live in a house that's like a museum. They don't. They need to be able to be kids, and you were.
Yeah.
So it's, but I think it sounds like a very good balance of just learning to respect things, which is why you do take care of your things.
Yeah.
This day.
And my dad really was. He liked to take care of things, but what it was rooted in was the fact that his parents grew up in the Great Depression, working very hard. My dad, very hard blue collar worker all of his life. And, when you work that hard for something and you buy something, you want it to last.
And you
have to take care of it because you may or may not be able to afford to replace it or whatever. So it came from really not an obsessive place, I don't think.
No.
It came from a good place.
I think it's lovely. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying we made mistakes with our girls, but I don't remember them being I don't think our bedroom and bathroom were off limits to them. And when I look back on my childhood,
our house was too small for it to be off limits to them.
Right. When they were little, we were running into each other.
Right.
You couldn't turn around without, and then we had dogs. We complicated our lives, but it was fine. It was fun. It was fantastic. They loved that house, but we never set those rules into place. And when I look back on my childhood, the whole, you don't use I never used my parents' bathroom without their permission. And I respect that to this day.
Yeah.
I'm glad they taught me that lesson for just whatever reason, just to respect people and their spaces.
Yeah.
It's important.
The other thing that we were clamped down on, me and my brother, was anything in Dad's shed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
His tools.
If you wanted to use a tool, you had to ask, and you were told to put it back where you got it.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
of course, that brought up a lot of, is Dad looking? I need the hammer. But to this day, I mean, granted, I'm a grown-up now, but everything I use, I put back where it goes.
Correct. That's also about not just respecting things, materialistic things, but a person's reverie in space. Because my dad had a shed too, and now I look back on it, it was his man cave. He was in there working on things, building things, and he kept it. And if we ever went in there, it was like to help him, and we were very careful of things.
Yeah.
And that's about respecting, someone's need to escape a little bit in their own life.
Yeah.
Which, parents do have. Working parents have that need.
Well, it's like anything. Times change, and I think we talked about this, on the show. The average home is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and those houses that were built in the 50s and the 60s. And really the early 70s, I guess, but really mainly the 50s and the 60s, it was 2 bathrooms, one that was the all-use bathroom, and then the other was just part of the master suite. So I think that's kind of where that came from. That's why that's their bathroom. It's attached to the master bedroom.
Yeah.
And the bathroom that everyone else used was that. And when you don't have more bathrooms than that, you don't think any differently. So of course you're going to go ask permission for the other things. But in our house, in my childhood home, which my dad lived in until the day that he passed, was all, I think it was all of maybe 1,350 square feet or something like that. And so when my dad wanted to, this opens up another, I was going to say when my dad wanted to relax, he drank a lot until he was sober. He was dry for 30 years after he got sober, but his relaxation was in the living room on a recliner in front of the TV, and then we had to be somewhere else. It was either going to be our bedrooms or the kitchen or whatever, but we just couldn't be making a lot of noise. That was my dad's whole thing, is he just wanted some quiet, but there was no escape and that sort of thing. He wasn't the kind of person who was going to retreat to the bedroom or anything like that. He wanted to sit in the living room, relax, and that's all we had. The house, again, was so small that it was built with a living room and a den, but there were only 3 bedrooms.
Sure.
And so that was my parents' bedroom, the bedroom that I grew up in, and then my brother. When my sister came along, my brother and I shared the same bedroom, and my sister had her own. But eventually, when we needed our own, they put a wall up in the living room, and half of that became my bedroom.
It created a room for you.
The other half became the entryway, later known as the NASCAR room. Once my mom was into that. But anyway, so the house was so tight. My point is, there was no, you can't. There were no little escape nooks or anything like that. But we spent most of our time outside anyway.
We all do that, no matter what size house we live in, and you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. I don't know if that's true for you, Sam, now that you live by yourself, but we all have little. I escape. Where do I escape into, Murph?
The family room.
Really, the bedroom mostly.
Oh yeah,
I do both, but my favorite reverie and escape is into our bedroom.
Yes,
and you're like in your man cave doing your electronics or whatever you're doing. And you don't even realize that's what you're doing, but you're finding a little reverie for yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they say that's why it's a trend in home design now for people to have their little nap nooks or reading nooks, places where they sort of escape, but don't go full to bed, but just stop for their downtime or nap spaces, wherever it may be. That's why it's a thing.
You can share with us. We'd love to hear from you, too. Hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. If you're listening to the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, you can also hit the talkback mic and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.